Welcome to New England Soccer Journal's The Goal Podcast, the podcast for serious soccer players and their supporters to help further their development and navigate their way throughout their soccer careers. And now, here's your host, Matt Langone.
Welcome into another episode of New England Soccer Journal's The Goal Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Langone. Today I'm joined in studio by NESJ writer Matt Doherty, and our guest will be New England Revolution Academy coach Abel Wasswa. Abel, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excited
to have you. I know it's busy times with the MLS next season kind of back in full force now. Spring is right around the corner. We're into March. What's kind of on your plate right now? What's kind of the main objectives for you? I believe you coach the U14s with the Revs Academy, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm the lead coach for the U14s. Yeah.
Right, and that's a young developmental year, kind of early on in the pathway for the Revs Academy and MLS Next. So, what are kind of your main objectives right now as we're into March and you're getting ready for kind of the marathon that is like the next few months here?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a unique situation for me because obviously I just started actually with the New England Revolution about 3 weeks ago. And
wow.
So, yeah, fun times. Yeah, it's a fun time. So it's been a period of learning my players, learning the guys that are within the age groups, guys that are moving up and down within the age group. So it's been, from a personal objective standpoint, it's been a little bit of learning the group, learning the individuals where they are and their development process. And then after I learn, where they are, how they've what their development plans have been, then how can we help them along the way? So that's a little bit of the past 3 weeks or so. And then moving forward, we're looking at how we can start implementing that as we get into the thick of things with the games.
So I know you coached college soccer the last couple years at BC, Oregon State. So why did you decide to join the high school level, the amateur level? What went into that decision and why the Revs?
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off of your, the beginning of your question, I think that I've been blessed and highly favored. And I always like to give glory to God because without him, nothing is possible in my life. But I've been blessed to coach at the highest level in college, experience that, help players develop in that environment. But I always felt like there was more to give in terms of development and in terms of football, in terms of the time spent with the players. And I thought that the academy pathway where you have 10 months with the players was a little bit more where I could give back the most to the players. I believe that the college environment is great. And I think that there are some people that are meant to be in the college environment and are best suited for that environment. But I thought that the academy pathway, where I have a little bit more time with the players, a little bit of a longer season, and then also getting players at a younger age where they're a little bit more malleable, a little bit more flexible, more room to grow. I thought that I'm best to share the things that I've learned along the way and mentor these players at a younger age and help them mold them into what they would hopefully love to become at a younger age. So I think it was a combination of those two things, wanting to be in more of a full-time football environment and then also helping impact players at a younger age where they're still a little bit more malleable and more learnable. Not that college players are not learnable, but I think that younger players soak in things more, and they're still almost in a little bit of foundation phase where they're still building and they're still being molded.
That's definitely true. My oldest son is 13, and I know that they do soak in a lot of stuff, but I also know they can be a little stubborn. They can be a little, taking criticism or taking coaching can sometimes be a delicate subject. I mean, how you approach that, how you try to squeeze the best out of these younger athletes, it can be a tricky thing to navigate. So how much do you have to adjust your coaching style and what you've done in the past at the college level with now working with younger kids who have all this potential and, like you said, all this ability to soak up all this information, but they're not necessarily as mature as the athletes you've dealt with in the past.
Yeah, I would say because so throughout my college journey, I've
Yeah.
also coached to younger players on the side because I really enjoy the energy that younger players bring. And so I've always wanted to be a part of that. They re-energize you in a different way, even as a person. So it wasn't always me giving them information. I think that in this world, it is a little bit of giving and taking. If you're always just giving, then I don't think you're learning as well. So I've been blessed with the opportunity in the New England area, the times that I've been in the New England area, that I've been able to still coach a youth on the side as well. So it's not something that is completely brand new. It's something that I've done on the sides with the college coaching. But to answer your question in terms of coaching the older player versus the younger player, I think that every player, no matter young player, old player, they all want to be the best version of themselves. And I don't believe in changing the demands that you place on a younger player as opposed to the older player. I think that you also have to place a demand on them, especially if they want to play at the highest level. Now, in terms of how you communicate with them off of the field and how you engage with them, I think that's a little bit different. And I think it has to be a little bit more positive reinforcement as opposed to maybe older players. Sometimes you can say, okay, two positives and one negative. With the younger players, it has to be, in my opinion, a more positive environment. And I think that you can be demanding with young players, but it doesn't mean that being demanding with them is being negative. And then lastly, they're in a stage where it's guided learning where you're trying to make sure that you're developing their understanding of the game. So instead of giving them answers right away, it's more asking them questions, guiding them to the solutions or the ideas that you want them to develop. So that way, with the coach being removed, they can still solve problems on their own instead of helping them solve them because maybe at the college level or the professional level, it's a time crunch and it's results based. You almost have to give the players a solution so that way you're moving quickly. But younger players, you're trying to help them discover the solutions on their own so that way they can answer questions in the game, depending on where they move to in the future. So I find that's a long-winded answer, but I would say in general, the demand is the same. I believe in order to develop a top player, it's more so it has to be done in a more positive way and also in get the players thinking way.
Very interesting. I like that answer a lot. I'm curious. You seem like a very thoughtful coach, and you're aware of all the components that go into coaching. I'm curious about your coaching background. Like, why did you want to get into coaching? What was the inspiration behind that? And going off that, do you have any like who have you learned from in the coaching realm that you feel like has helped you got to this point?
Yeah, in terms of my background, I always knew that I wanted to stay in the game, just like most coaches. I always knew that I wanted to stay in the game, but I think the most important thing, if you roll the years back, I was born and raised in Africa, and I think that I was born in a family where football is a thing, soccer, football. And so I was blessed to play in the streets, to play with friends. I mean, it's all we knew. But unfortunately, I did not have proper coaching until I moved to the US, and then it was a little bit later in life. And when I reflect back, I look at it as if I had a coach at a younger age that got a hold of me at that age, who knows what could have happened for me in terms of my career. And
Yeah.
so when I finished playing in college, I knew that okay, if I'm not going to play at the highest level that I hoped that I would play, I would love to be that person for someone else, so that hopefully they can get there. And so that was in the decision to start coaching. And I was fortunate enough that my college coach, Christian Figueroa at UMass Lowell, saw something in me. I was also one of the older players in the locker room. And so naturally, when I finished playing and we talked about what I wanted to do with my career, it's something that he proposed to me. And I jumped right into it. I went into it just head first. I got rid of everything else that I was doing and I just focused on coaching, and it was probably the best decision that I've made. So the people that have made an impact on me, my very first coach, who was not truly a coach, he just introduced me to the game. My uncle Godfrey, he was probably the biggest impact in terms of loving the game, getting introduced to the game. And then from there, I had my first coach in the U.S., Mike. He used to coach at Vallejo Blast. He used to be called VFC Blast. Mike Haynes, island guy. I mean, this guy spoke so fast you didn't even understand what he was saying. Um, but he truly loved his players, and I got a little bit of that from him, the amount of love that he showed to his players. And then from there, I moved to Merrimack College, where I was probably introduced to true discipline and accountability and standards from Tony Martone, who's still there.
Yeah, he's been there for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. He taught me what discipline is. When in the moment I hated it, but when I look back now, I'm so thankful for that. And then you fast forward, I transferred to UMass Lowell with Christian Figueroa. He taught me how to manage people and how to see things from the player's perspective, how to organize things. And then I call it the best football education that I ever received when I went to Oregon State. I worked with Terry Boss, who worked with the U.S. national team, and then went to Oregon State, and then went to Austin FC, and now he just took over USL championship team. I thought I knew the game, and then I started working with Terry, and I got a Harvard. I call it a Harvard degree in about a year and a half. Um, so those people have influenced my coaching journey. And then from there, I went to Boston College and I worked with Bob Thompson and Frankie D'Agostino. And I thought those guys brought the balance for me, in terms of the understanding of the game, in terms of the teaching of the game, handling players. So everyone that I've worked with and been coached by has had some sort of influence on me, and I try to combine it all, and then
Yeah, take parts from each of them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But within all that, I try to be myself, and my faith is a big part of my coaching approach. So it's all encapsulated, and then hopefully helping the players.
You're clearly super passionate about what you do. I mean, that shows through in the limited time we've already been talking on this episode. That clearly shows through. And I would venture to say that when you're coaching at the U14 level, I mean, that passion is a major element of what makes a good coach, because it's so early in the pathway that you're going to kind of set the stage for these kids as they progress through the pathway. All of them have visions of playing in college. A lot of them have aspirations to play in the pros. So how important do you find that to be, that coaching at that level, coaching at that young level, to show that passion every day and kind of make these players want to come to the field every day?
Yeah. I think that whether it's the young level or the old level, the players take on the the persona of the coach, or at least they feed off of your energy. And so it's my responsibility, number one, to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. So that way when I show up for these players, I have the energy that they're going to feed off of. I remember clearly when I was a young player, if I walked into an environment and the coach looked like they're sour or they're tired, I'm always like, oh, it's going to be a terrible day. If I walk into the coach is, energetic and joyful, then I'm like, okay, immediately I know that we might have a good session, or I'm not gonna get yelled at. This guy's not angry from home, so today's going to be a good day. So I think that me myself as a coach, I am responsible for my own behavior around the players, because they're as much as they think they're under a microscope, they look at us and we're under a microscope in their eyes, because they're always at that age. Most of them are looking for approval from the coach. They're like, oh my God, is coach watching me? Did I do things right? Did I do this? What's coach was a little bit angry today. Was he angry at me? So I think that the energy that we come with on a day-to-day basis, leave alone the information, because I think the information and the learning process can happen whether I'm there or not. So I think that the very first thing in terms of creating the best environment for them is my energy levels and the joy that I bring to the field. That is, I think, the most non-negotiable thing that a coach can bring. If you think about it, I mean, I'm sure both of you guys played sports. If you show up and the energy is low, chances are you don't even want to be there. You don't want to learn. And so a part of creating that environment for them, where I call it essentially creating fertile soil. I think the fertile soil is the attitude and the environment that I create for these guys. And then from there, we can then throw seeds in there that hopefully can help them grow.
That's awesome. So I know it's early. It's only been a couple weeks, but say Matt and I are going to come to a Revolution U14 game this spring. Like what style of soccer are we getting? Like how do you want your players to play, and what's kind of the identity you want to create with this group?
Yeah, I think in terms of the identity itself, because the New England Revolution Academy is in alignment, and so my hope is that when you go and you watch the U14s and you watch the U15s and you watch the U13s, the pre-formation phase, that you see the same thing that you see from the 13s, the 14s, and the 15s. And so my hope is that you see these players running hard, running fast. You see these players expressing themselves. You see that there's a clear understanding of the game. And so I think those things you can see, whether they're in the defensive phase where these players are running hard, they're pressing hard, they're working for each other. In the attacking phase where these players are taking risk, they're controlling the game, they're playing with the front foot. I think those are the things that, without getting into the nitty-gritties of the playing model and the principles of the Revolution Academy, my hope is that if you come and you're in the stands, you will see those behaviors that our players are pressing, they're running hard, they're playing on the front foot, they're not afraid to take risk, they're communicating, they're vocal, because these are the things that, to get into the second team and to get into the first team, these are the small things, the very basics that those people are looking for. So that would be my hope.
What would you say are the key traits of what makes a player capable of playing in the Revolution Academy system? I mean, what kind of dedication, what kind of commitment do they have to play in this system and try to complete that pathway as it's supposed to be completed?
Yeah, I think there's specific player profiles within the academy, but if you're looking at what we're trying to look for in the players, in possession, a player that has technical mastery, someone that is very, very good on the ball. Obviously, that can be developed, but if you're asking me what I see as a New England Revolution player, somebody that has absolutely mastered their technique, someone that in the attacking, when we have the ball, can win their individual duels. That is essentially being able to beat their player one on one in all situations, whether there's pressure behind them, pressure on the sides of them, pressure in front of them. Somebody that can essentially break the game, because at the end of the day, when you're looking to go to the next level, it's not good enough to be a player that can just maintain possession. It is, are you able to actually break the game on your own? Are you able to win your 1v1 duels in possession and out of possession? And so there is a focus on that development of the player, their understanding of how they win the individual duel in possession and how they win the individual duel out of possession. And so the hope is that within that they have a very clear understanding of the game. So if you come to some of the training sessions, there's a focus on awareness, and so we talk a lot about scanning, because if you're not scanning, you cannot take in information to make a proper decision. We break down from the beginning. For example, if it's a individual defending, we're breaking down the technique from the speed at which you begin your press, the technique of slowing down, bending your knees, getting there, arms distance. And so we start with breaking down the smallest of technique in every single individual action. And then from there, we build it upon for the tactical portion of it, having the intelligence, essentially scanning, taking in information of where are my teammates, where's the opponent, so that I can make a decision without the coach telling me this is the decision. And then from there, we bring it into the team aspect. You know, what, I'm doing this. What is the guy to my left doing? What is the guy to my right doing? What is the guy in the next line doing? And so the player has to have an understanding of both those things. Technical mastery and then good tactical understanding. And it starts with, from the youngest age group, being able to just look around you and take in information.
I'm curious about kind of going off that about 14-year-old kids now. Like this, I know it's different about college kids, but how do you identify the player's strengths and weaknesses at this age? Like, is it different than a college player? I know obviously like physically and athletically it's going to be different, but what are some of the contrasts that you've noticed so far? And how do you sort of mold these players at a younger age that was different than what you did at the college age?
Yeah, I would say in terms of the differences, because again, I always leave room for the fact that as a coach, I'm always learning. I don't have all the answers. So this also has been a part of the learning process for me in terms of actually having a U14 team. I've coached the younger players in individual sessions or in a group setting, but not in a team setting where it's the same players for a consistent period of time and learning their behaviors in a period of time. And so, in the short period of time that I've had with the young players, I would say from a coaching perspective, because I'm used to older players that maybe are already physically developed,
Right. Yeah. That's
already understand the game at a certain level, and their emotions are at a certain level. So when I observe a younger player, I have to remind myself, okay, he knows, for example, from a understanding of the game. I'll give you a scenario that over the weekend happened. Um, the previous week we were focusing a lot on pressing and disrupting the buildup of the opposition, and we worked on it from an individual perspective and then the collective. And so I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, during the week for the center backs, we were looking at their body orientation to make sure that they can defend the space behind them and then the space in front of them effectively. And so that's one of, from their sector. And when I mean sector, like their line, that's one of the things that we focused on a lot. And so in the game, the players were so in tune with that. Our center backs did an amazing job of doing that. But then I'm looking at it, I'm like, the line is not moving together. They're not communicating and moving the line together. And then I caught myself saying, you know what? These are still under 14 players. They're developing the one thing that we talked about. I can't then say, why is he not doing A, B, C, D, and E
right.
that a senior player should be doing? So I have to reel myself back in and say, evaluate this thing that we worked on,
Mhm.
that, we were teaching them during the week. Where is he in the learning process with that? Has he made improvements in that specific component that we worked on? And then if he has, great, then we can reaffirm that positively, and then move on to the next thing that he can learn in that aspect. So I would say that's been a part of the learning process with working with the younger players, is that it's not a finished product. It is a work in progress. And the thing that they've been learning throughout the week is the only thing not the only thing, but the main thing that we should be evaluating, and then everything else is something that we can teach later on.
I'm curious how you viewed yourself as a player. What were your strengths when you played, and how has that influenced how you are as a coach?
Yep. So as a player, my background is I grew up playing in the streets with my friends, and I
Mm.
was coached really late. And so I depended a lot on, street football, dribbling, winning your individual duels, essentially with the ball. I think that because in the street, it might be 5v5 or 10v10, but in reality, it is 1v1 everywhere. It
Right.
is me and the
Everyone's looking to
ball.
showcase their skill. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And so I thought that helped me in terms of playing under pressure, being confident to receive the ball, escaping pressure in all sorts of ways. And so when I moved to the US and I moved into team situations, I knew that if you gave me the ball, everything is okay. When I did not have the ball, there was a lot of learning to do because I did not know how to play in a team situation. I did not read and understand the game well enough. And mostly that was off the ball. Besides scanning to see where my individual player was that I needed to beat, I was not scanning to see where my teammates are. I was not scanning to see where the opponent was. And I was not looking to see what the next action or decision is, from an individual perspective and a team perspective. So when I went into the team environment, I played initially as a center midfielder, and then I moved to center back later on in my career. But what I took from that is you, the game intelligence of players, plays a bigger part in their advancement than even the technical portion. Of course, technical mastery is important. And I think that if you look across the board, most players in, at least this is my opinion, most players in academy football are technically at a high level. And I don't, maybe there might be, three guys in the field that are just superbly over everyone else in terms of technique. But I think the game intelligence and the understanding of the game is what separates the guys that move on to the next level. All things equivalent.
Yeah.
If,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I get one guy that's super athletic and another guy that's super athletic, and then, technique, if this guy has higher a bigger game intelligence or higher game intelligence, chances are, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen, that he has a better chance of making it than the other guy. And so my coaching approach is that, yes, in the sessions, there's a high demand on technique, but the hope is that I help my players develop their game intelligence, more than anything. And then within that, I believe that the only reason why I was able to play Division 1 college soccer is because in the streets I was able to solve problems just individually. So there's something to be said about a player that can solve problems individually. So my focus when I'm coaching for the most part is developing their game intelligence and then helping them their individual battles with the ball and without the ball. And I think that in the game today, those are the two things that can help a player progress.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know we got an email. You're participating in the Elite Formation Coaching License Program. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What does that entail, and what do you have to do to complete that license?
Yeah. So I want to give credit and thank Rob Becerra for helping me get into that course because, I started with the Revolution, and I think that from what I've heard from people both in the license and in the environment of the Revolution, usually it's, coaches that have been in the environment for 2 years, 3 years, that sort of thing. But, gracefully, Rob was able to get me into the license as soon as I started with the Revolution. So I'm very thankful for that. So in general, it's an 18-month course, and it's run by, the French Federation in conjunction with the MLS. So we're getting, at least what I can tell you from my experience, because I went there for the first course meeting, it is learning how the French Federation and the best academies in France have developed their players and their methodology and the way that they're teaching their players, because they're one of the countries that is leading in player production and producing the highest end players. So within that, my experience has been learning how, their teaching methods, how they approach player movement, how they approach changing the behavior of the coach, so that way the coach is facilitating the best possible environment for the player to develop and grow. And but that they did it, in my experience has been that in all phases of development. So that is physical development, that is emotion development, technical development, tactical, and so sociological. So within all of that, how they've gone about developing their players, the methodology that they've used, and the approach that they've used in general, to essentially they've created a revolution of developing players at the highest level. So it is teaching, I guess, the American coach, because it's all American coaches from within the MLS, how to better do that.
Is the course, is it all online or is it in person? Like how do you, or assessments, like how does it all work in terms of the over the course of the 18 months?
Yeah. So we had there's six in-person meetings. The first, it's in terms of weeks. There's 6 weeks that are in person, and then the other weeks are remote and in your environment. So the first week was in France at Clairefontaine, the national team training center for the French national team. we had 1 week in there where it was sessions in the classroom and then observations on the field, watching the technical director of Clairefontaine running some training sessions, watching their pedagogy, which is essentially their approach to teaching, and then watching the methods in the classroom in terms of video presentations, player meetings, physical development, emotional development, etc. After that, we had 1 week where we went off to a European club observation. So my experience was at Toulouse FC, which is in the south of France. Unbelievable experience. And so they picked a club that had coaches that also went through the same license to watch and see in their own environment for 1 week how they operated in all phases of player development. And then after that 1 week, we all return to our home environments. We have a 3-month development period where you have assignments, meetings online on Zoom, and then we'll do another 1 week in person, which will actually take place at the Revolution Training Center, which will be really cool. So all the coaches will come to the Revolution Training Center for 1 week. And then after that, there'll be another 3-month period of development, and then we go somewhere else for a week. So 3 months,
Yeah.
1 week in person, 3 months, 1 week in person for a total of 18 months. And then at the end, we'll go back to France for our final meeting and evaluation.
That's really cool. That's awesome. Good luck with everything. Congratulations on getting into. That sounds incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Serious about playing college soccer? Elite College Soccer Camps are your gateway. Train with top college coaches and receive personalized feedback. Our West Coast Elite Camps offer exposure to national programs, plus small group seminars on recruiting and college life. Included is a free camp Zoom for parents and players covering the ever-changing recruitment landscape. At the camp conclusion, get a verbal and written 101 evaluation, free 11v11 game footage, and access our analyst option. With coaches from NESCAC to the Big West and all over the country, our unique format maximizes exposure. Trainers are on site, lunch delivery is available, and parents can watch every game. Our camps sell out, so don't miss out. Register now at EliteCollegeSoccerCamps.com. That's EliteCollegeSoccerCamps.com. Your path to the next level starts here. Abel, you seem like obviously a great addition to the Revolution staff. You sound like you're the right person to be coaching that age group. We can see your passion kind of showing through. So we really appreciate your time with us today. But before we let you go, we're going to switch over to our overtime session here with producer David Yaz. He's going to hit us with 3 zany questions from the soccer world. We'll see what we can do with those. David.
You want zany? I guess I'll give you some zany. Welcome back to Extra Time. Here we go.
It's the end of regulation, so let's move to Extra Time.
This edition of Extra Time will be throwing out 3 possible changes to the game of soccer. First one will be mild, the next one will be moderate, and the third one will be zany or radical.
Love it.
Depending upon how you look at it. First one, and we just want your thoughts, all 3 of you on this panel, as to what you think. The first potential change to the game, adding a so-called sin bin, as opposed to a penalty box, a sin bin, for yellow cards. Introduce a temporary 5 to 10 minute suspension for yellow card offenses, similar to the way hockey does it when it forces players to go to the penalty box. Abel, you get to go first on this. What do you think about that idea?
I mean, I never want to be negative on ideas, but not my cup
No,
of
it's
tea.
okay. That's what this is about.
Not my cup of tea.
Okay. Tell us why.
I think it's Yeah, for the fan experience, as soon as you remove a player from the field, one of the teams is going to be very defensive minded, and it kills the entertainment of the game and the flow of the game. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah,
Well, it's okay if you don't feel good about it.
Would there
For
be
me-
like,
for
would
me,
it be
it's a
like a
no-go.
power play essentially?
Well, it would become a power play.
Okay.
Because
The only problem with that in soccer is, unlike there's 11 players on the field to begin with, so you subtract one, then okay, it's 10 on 11. But in soccer, you can literally, like Abel just said, you can sit on the ball and you can kind of erase that 5 minutes pretty quickly, and especially a highly skilled possession team can kind of sit on that and evaporate it. And I don't think it would. I'm all for like more excitement. If you can find more offense in the game, do it. But I don't think that would do much, and I think it would just be kind of like hockey wannabe stuff. I wouldn't be down with it.
Okay.
I'm like
Matthew?
kind of down for it.
There you go.
Now that I'm thinking
We got
about
one.
it. I don't
Kinda
know. I think because like I understand both your points. I think there's some drawbacks to it, but I also think it could be exciting. I think sometimes I do wish there was a little bit more scoring opportunities in soccer, and I think that would bring maybe like I don't know. Well, I think I would need like a trial period.
Yeah.
Maybe like an exhibition. You implement it for a couple games and see how it goes.
Yeah, they can try it, like baseball does with like in like the lower minor leagues and stuff. When
Or
they try,
spring training.
when they try things out, you could try that out maybe at like a lower level soccer league. I mean, I'll tell you this much. Outside of the United States, nobody's going for this. I mean, no one in Europe or South America or any other continent is going to take. They're not touching their beautiful game. So this would be an American thing, and I don't even know that Americans would want it.
Could it serve as a deterrent though for yellow cards? Would you think twice?
Yeah, that's the other thing, right?
I don't know. I don't even know if it would. I don't know.
Well,
maybe.
maybe.
Coaches are at the highest level have become so good at manipulating new rules that I'm sure it can change the way that they try to exploit the opposition. But in terms of organization, unless it's over an extended period of time where the team that is one man down is getting fatigued, coaches are just so good and teams are so good at like getting organized and being impossible to break down that I can't see. And again, you never know, but over that period of time, I just don't see how they can break down a well-organized block, especially if they're just sitting back and just waiting for you to just try to exploit them.
I think Abel just gave that the most diplomatic hell no answer I've ever seen in my life. He was like, "This is the dumbest idea ever," but he was super diplomatic and super safe about how he said it.
I don't want to go against you, Abel, but I guess for 5 minutes too, it wouldn't even be long enough to really have an impact. And then like 10 minutes is probably too much time. That's like, an eighth of a match. I don't know.
Matty, you're waffling. Why are you waffling? Come on.
Because Abel's
we don't do waffling in extra time.
All right, that's okay. We move on to.
I'm half
Go ahead.
there.
Okay. We move on to the second change, possibly. Kick-ins instead of throw-ins. Replace throw-ins with kick-ins to possibly speed up restarts and increase attacking opportunities. We'll go around the horn the different way this time. Matty D, what do you think?
Yes.
You like it?
I think that'd be really cool.
Tell us
Yeah, I think sometimes throw-ins, like I watch a lot of throw-ins now, and nothing happens from throw-ins. I think like I was at a game on Saturday, and one of the teams had the ball on the offensive end, and like horrible throw and lose possession. I think it creates a little bit more excitement, like I was saying, in terms of scoring opportunities. It would be a little weird watch like how far to some like I guess
Gimmicky.
it would be the same as a free kick, right? Like you have to stand a couple yards back and let it in. But I'm like 75% in on this one. If the last one was 50, I kind of like this idea.
Okay.
I think throw-ins, like nothing happens from throw-ins. I think it's a cool skill. Like someone who can throw the ball in well is interesting and creates an advantage for that team. But I'd be down for the kick-ins. I want to hear what you guys think.
All right. Matty L?
I'm intrigued by that, but ultimately I would keep the throw-ins just because it's one of the few. I mean, it's the only time in soccer you're allowed to use your hands. I mean, aside from being a goalkeeper. So when I was playing high school soccer, my senior year, we were in the state tournament. We brought up a kid, a sophomore to varsity for the state tournament. He wasn't he could do a flip throw. I mean, he had a weapon flip throw where he could chuck the ball from, into the box, from, if he was within reach, he could hit the box and give us a header opportunity. That was the only reason we brought him up, and it was a weapon.
It's a skill.
It's a skill.
Yeah.
And, I covered the NEPSAC tournament 2 years ago, and I remember when Worcester Academy won it, they had a kid who could launch the ball, and it was a weapon.
Yeah.
When the ball was anywhere near the box, that was a weapon. The opposition had to account for it. I mean, if you're doing kick-ins, every player on the field, theoretically, is pretty good at that because that's how you play soccer to begin with. Everyone can already kick the ball pretty well. I think the throw-in is a separate skill set that does... You're right, Matt, that most of the game, during the flow of the game, it means nothing. It's a lot of times just dump it in quickly, let's get the possession back, and let's go. But that throw-in can be a weapon in the right time, and I think it's worth keeping.
Abel, what do you think?
Yeah, I would keep the throw-in.
Come on, guys. Let's do some shade.
It's two on one all day today.
The kick-in would just slow the game down so much, unless they say you can only kick the ball 5 yards. Because if you think about it, the teams that have a long throw, as soon as they cross halfway, especially, teams that are limited, they will just stop the game, have everyone, just the center back, the whole back line, get up, get into the box, chuck the ball. So it will turn into a corner kick every single time. And I think they slowed down so much with VAR and all this and all that, the game will go to 130 minutes for all we know.
For sure, yeah.
Could you score off the
idea.
If you kicked it in the net, would that count as a goal?
Can you throw it in the net?
Yeah, but no one ever has
No one's
strength to do that.
I don't know. We'd have to review that. We're making stuff up here, Matt, so you answer the question.
I also love corner kicks, and I think that's the give and pull, right? Because it doesn't make the corner kick as valuable if you can kick it in.
Right, it completely deteriorates the value of the corner kick.
Right. That's one of my favorite parts of the game is when there's a corner kick.
Maybe the field should have more corners. No,
just have a million corners. Yeah.
All right, final, and you wanted Zany, you got Zany. Final possible suggestion for changing the game of soccer. Abel, you can start with this one. Multi-ball chaos mode in extra time. Introduce two balls on the pitch. It's like when you play pinball and you get the extra ball sometimes. Introduce two balls on the pitch simultaneously in extra time for high energy play. I have a feeling I know which way you're going to go on this, Abel, but give us your thoughts.
And it's actually an interesting one. I think maybe at the younger age groups, introduce some more excitement. I mean, every kid wants their own ball, so like absolute young age groups, yes, but anything older than that.
You'd have to practice for it a whole different way. Like, right? There would be all kinds of strategies. Like, do you flood one ball and ignore the other, or what? I don't know.
It's a cool idea that I would love to try.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there we go. Matt Langoni.
Again, I'm super intrigued by that one. Of all the three changes you've come up with, David,
you like the Zany one?
That would be the one I would think about.
Yep.
But the one idea I've always come back to is one my dad actually came up with like a long time ago, where he says in overtime in a soccer match, every 2 minutes you remove a player from the field. Each team removes a player. So it goes down 11, then it's 10, then it's 9, then it's 8. And then all of a sudden you get a wide open field with like 7v7 or like 6v6. And it's just wide open. It's still soccer. It's coming down to fitness a little bit more than it was before.
Oh, God. Those last two players are going to be exhausted.
Seriously. I mean, well, hopefully you score before it's one-on-one, but you never know. Some of these teams.
I love that idea.
But that's the one. Okay. My dad mentioned it a long time. I remember when he said it to me, I was like young, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Now I've gotten older, and I'm like, that's actually a pretty good idea. That should be floated around to a lot of these commissioners.
Yeah, and I know how all of you soccer purists hate ending games in penalty kicks. Like, I mean, it really is the skills of soccer. It's just in it. Yeah.
Just in a smaller, I mean, honestly, soccer is already one of the key foundations of soccer is fitness. That comes down to fitness and skill at the end of the day. Who's going to win?
I like it. Matt, the multi-ball and player removal.
No multi-ball. No multi-ball.
No multi-ball. Okay.
Not down with that. My first thought was, what if we did the first two for overtime? So in overtime, you had what was our first one?
Well, we had the send-in for yellow cards.
So you do the send-in for yellow cards, which kind of goes off the taking a player off, and you do the kick-ins during extra time.
Okay.
So
because no one wants to end in penalty kicks. Like, even the college coaches.
Now we're just getting wild.
Losing in the Final Four in penalty kicks. Maybe they'd rather have these two rules implemented, not the multi-ball, and also taking the players off. I like that one.
It would be fun to do any of these maybe for a special tournament. Probably not the World Cup, because the World Cup is so steeped in tradition.
Right.
But have a different tournament.
It sounds like an indoor league. This would be fun. And
True.
Actually,
Go ahead, Abel.
I was in Qatar in December, and PSG Qatar had a tournament where they flew in all these different academy teams for a 7v7 tournament. I think it must have been either U12s or U11s. And at the end of the game, that for overtime or extra time, that's what they were doing. It started at 5v5. They took a player off every
they did? Okay.
minute.
Wow.
Yeah, every minute. And it was so fun to watch. The parents were going crazy. The kids on the side were going crazy. It was really fun, actually.
What you need is you need a soccer version of the Savannah Bananas, where they just come up with a soccer team with wild rules, and it's like, Savannah Bananas is like taking baseball and flipped it on its head. So I mean that's kind of what would happen. That would be like the soccer league for the people who want the zaniness.
Yeah, you've got a player in spring training now, this pitcher, Jan, for the Rockies, who's doing a dance after every time he strikes somebody out. That is the influence of the Savannah Bananas.
It is. It's trickled down.
We need
put them on stilts.
We need the soccer bananas. All right, well, you've all done marvelously well in extra time. And the prizes for today will be game-worn cleats by players who have been sent to the sin bin. Okay. And back to you, Matt, to wrap things up.
Great stuff, as always, from David. Zany stuff is always good stuff, so I'm happy to see that. Abel, thanks so much for joining us today. You were great in extra time and really good perspective on the Revs Academy as well. And best of luck this spring. We'll be keeping tabs on how all the Revolution Academy squads do this spring.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was really fun. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks
again to Abel Wasswa for joining the podcast. I'm Matt Langoni. Thanks for listening. New England Soccer Journal's The Goal podcast is produced by David Yaz and is a Seamans Media production.
You've been listening to New England Soccer Journal's The Goal podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to our podcast. Or visit anysoccerjournal.com/podcast. Seamans Media. Inspiring, informative, insightful.